Welcome, everybody. Let's just get right into any volunteers to lead in the Pledge of Allegiance or a thought.
Andy was supposed to have a word of the day and she's not here. I'll do the pledge.
Perfect.
I
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Since I was gone last week, I did go through, or 2 weeks ago, I did go through the video on YouTube. I've got some questions for later on, so I don't have anything to review there. Do we have something else? Sandy want to talk about Flux Deal or something, but
You want to do John's thing first? And then
Yeah.
we'll go back?
Yeah, and then we'll go to John's next, but I'm good to not review, just move forward, so.
Yeah. Well, if we go through your questions and Sandy's questions after John's thing.
Okay, that works. John, you're up.
Hey, so based on Sandy's email and the conversations around tough and benefits, I just wanted to point out that those sort of things are the ideas that are kind of policy related that I think it'd be helpful for the group to spend time on. You know, I think still have the yellow sheets. I think it's still helpful for the group to review them offline and then come with questions. But if this group spend most of its time on those items, there's going to be potentially more budget and better policy recommendations to the council from there. Since Brian's email about benefits and then Sandy's email about the tough, Katie has gotten some information from, I feel like it was 30 communities.
Oh, it's a lot, yeah.
That have, you know, this is what they do for benefits, everything. It's 401k, vision, health, days off. I mean, so we can get that list to the committee to say, hey, here's all the communities that have participated in this survey, so that the community can have a healthy discussion around benefits. And I think that this is a good location for it too, because it allows for an open conversation to happen with ideas without the council being put on the spot in a public meeting where they feel like they have to make a vote. And then same thing with the tough. Obviously it's in place, people have started charging for it. Not everyone understands the use, but it's also something that this group can talk about again because it directly impacts residents. Utility rates are another thing that maybe this group could get involved in. Some other thoughts I had were like public safety questions around like officers per 1,000. What are our goals? Are we getting cats out of trees? Oh, sorry, that's the firemen who get the cats out of trees. So, recreation, the pool. I mean, those are real high level policy discussions that if this group can lead the research and kind of the analysis on that, I think the council would benefit from your insight. But I just wanted to kind of pitch that as an idea for the group. Since we've gone through yellow sheets 3 years in a row, I don't want to take the yellow sheets out of the hand because that's a critical component, and
Especially for new people.
yeah. But I want to make sure that you're spending time where there's potentially a chance to find savings.
Can I respond?
Mhm.
Peter, do you remember what I requested or just you and I discussed several months or so ago?
Kind of on the same line, right? You want to
Exact
have
same
a policy and
Why are we looking through yellow sheets? I think it's kind of a waste of time. I'm not a micromanager. I prefer to trust the people. Now I look through the yellow sheets that were sent out. I have 1 or 2 questions. But yeah, I agree with you. And I've said that from the beginning. Now I have made requests specifically regarding, the recreation department. Do you remember what those requests were?
It was the history, right?
History.
Yeah.
What's the participation level? What's the budget? Is the budget going up? Participation level going down? Where are we at? I'd like to see that because that would be helpful to have to discuss in this meeting. Same thing with the pool. What's the participation level? What's the budget? Let's look at those. So the last 2-3 years.
Okay. I know that the rec stuff is ready.
Perfect. Where can I get it?
I can
Where
email.
can we get it?
We can email it out to have it ready for the discussion next time.
I think it's on the agenda for next time, isn't it? Yeah, I think so.
If that, I'd prefer to be here on that one, and next time, the April, whatever, beginning of April, I've got the water meeting again.
Right.
Because we're leading into our season and our shareholder meeting, I probably can't miss that. But I would like to be here on those meetings.
So what's the one after that, Peter? What's the group that's after the recreation?
So. Hold on, bring that. Schedule up there.
The first is down, police admin, court, recreation, and then the next one is review fund balances and finalize budget.
So we could just hold the recreation conversation, cause that's a lot to tackle.
Yeah, I
That
mean,
does seem like a lot.
essentially, we were gonna kind of jump through most of the general fund next, go around with the police and everything.
So we could move aquatic and rec to the meeting afterwards.
Yeah, we could do that. We could push those two down, and just kind of tack it onto the next following agenda.
Okay.
And again, I'm speaking for me, not necessarily the entire group, so feel free to disagree with me. I'd like to see the history of it so we can see trends,
Okay.
and therefore we can make a suggestion to the council. That's my whole thought
Okay.
process there. So,
Julie, we got until the council on May 12th to final or approve a tentative budget, right? So,
And there is things a group can still be involved in,
Yeah.
cause the budget's not adopted till the end of June, but
but that's kind of the goal is to
Yeah.
get stuff in front of the council before the 12th of May.
yeah.
So that should keep it up.
okay, well, we get that, that'd be helpful, because that's what I'd like to dive
Yep.
into.
Yeah, because that's the pay-as-you-go type thing, right? That's what you're looking for is
Pay for-
costs.
yeah.
Do you want senior center in that same group as well?
Might as well, I'm getting close.
Well, I always group those activities together, cause they're
Anybody goes.
recreational, but.
Sign said under 55, stay away. I misunderstood.
Okay,
Yeah, I'd be curious, taking a look at all that
Okay.
again, just last 3 years, participation, budget.
I think the county can give us participation over there for the senior center, cause they're the ones who count how many people come in.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, because did they make a decision on whether Riverdale could actually charge a fee or not?
they can because they don't get money from the county,
That's
so.
Their charge.
But they're getting ready to, change it dramatically because their sales tax percentage is going away. They had a
Oh, that-
local
oh, that's right,
option
the local,
sales tax
yeah.
that goes away in 28 or something, so 27, 28. So that was, if the group's okay with that, then you'll still see the yellow sheets, we'll have questions and answers about it, but we'll try and heavily focus on policy.
What was the questions on the tough fee? I mean, I haven't heard anything. Sandy was concerned. Have you guys heard any feedback? Has anybody heard anything?
Is that the transportation?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I've heard a lot because
What are-
people know I go to the meeting.
What are the questions? What are the
They would
concerns?
much rather have had property tax increase than a monthly bill, and they're very upset that they were not notified beforehand of the charge coming out.
Do they understand why it's a fee versus a property tax increase?
No.
Do you understand that?
Probably not.
Let me explain it, correct me if I'm wrong. If it's a property tax increase, the money goes into the general fund and can be used for anything the city wants.
But it is my understanding that they can have a highlighted line in the property tax where it can go to transportation fee.
But it can still be moved.
So if
Different council, different people can move it wherever. If it's a fee, sorry.
if it's fee, it goes strictly to roads. And so I've been lobbying that for a year plus. If we need road money, let's not put it in the general fund where it can go for pools and amphitheaters and recreation. Let's put it where it's guaranteed for roads.
And the other thing is it's $15 if you're doing a general house. Your house might be more, but based on your value of your house, so you might be paying more than $15.
That makes sense because the property tax is
And so
proportional.
it's not based on, it's
Quality
based on
thing,
usage
too.
now versus your property tax value. And so to me, that's a different thing, so.
I
that
do
Smiths-
get all that, but my comments have been, that they would have preferred a property tax increase. And most especially that they were upset that they were not notified.
When is,
A statement in their bill, an email, Because there are still some of us who have signed up for email and do not receive it.
Cause the fee already hit our accounts, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
It was this month.
Clearly I'm not
That's
paying
why I've heard
attention
about
to
it, because
my bills.
everybody's bill came and it was like,
I think it's been in discussion for a year though.
Yeah, it's been in discussion. for a
it
while.
has. It has, and those of us who make an attempt to follow know. But if you go to a city council meeting, there's maybe 5 regular people. So nobody else knows.
No, and that's the thing, and that's the big thing about communication. That's always been since, I've been around. How do you communicate to the citizens, I mean, Katie has this burden that she's shoveling stuff out the door on all of the media sites, but, all of the stuff, basically, if it's not in your feed, you'll never see it, or if you don't visit it, it never happens. You have a website, you have all these social media accounts, and then the ancillary ones.
And
So
you have
that's the
people-
problem. Is
You have
that,
people who do automatic bill pay and they get no information.
Yeah.
Unless they search their own. And I will tell you that I switched my bill pay today and it was not that easy as everybody's saying it
it was
is.
easy for me, but my mother-in-law is having the bear of a time trying to do it, so.
You have to know what your customer number is from the city. And again, I don't do paper, so I had to search that. Wasn't as easy as
Bing, bang,
it
boom.
made it
Yeah.
seem to be.
That guy back there, I'm just kidding.
I mean, we're trying to transition 3,000 accounts. There's gonna be some hiccups. Yeah.
And the only way I knew to delete my account, and we realize that I'm fairly computer illiterate, was to go in and take my bank account off, and then it told me that my, last one that we used to use is no longer working, but there was no place that I could see that said delete your account.
Would it be helpful, because one of the ideas that came from staff meeting this morning was that maybe we have like a workshop where people who want help can come in.
Guess what? If those 5 people, if it's only the 5 people that read the
Yeah.
webpage or come to the meeting, then yeah, you got 5 people, but there's still the rest of the city.
Yeah,
I don't know what to tell you.
We need an electronic sign or something. Drones.
I would
Drones.
agree. I never go on this
No,
road.
it would be
unless I'm
over,
coming to a
it would be
meeting.
on Mount Washington.
And how high is it gonna be? How tall?
Call it the meeting.
Because in front of my house,
I'm not trying to be sarcastic.
no, in front of my house, we did that walking path and we did those cute little lamps.
Yeah.
There's not a one of them left that works.
yeah.
They've all been kicked off,
Yeah.
broken off, tipped over. So it's gotta be tall enough that people can't climb it or can't reach it.
Or tag it, yeah.
I think something that would be helpful for the citizens is put some information on the city's website. It's got the utility fee in there and some information about it and whatnot, but it doesn't go far enough
Yeah.
as far as how did we get where we are.
Well, that was the
And
plan. and that's-
history.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know a
Because
little bit.
I think a lot of people don't understand how we got to where we are with the lack of funds for the roads and the lack of maintenance that's occurred on the roads.
I did a deep dive, and it's not so much that the B and C road funds fell behind inflation wise. It was the fact that our number of roads and the population, which is supposed to be didn't keep up. So we were 20 to 30% behind based on that. So that's the interesting part.
The other thing too is if we could post the report that the engineer did, put a link on there. So that if somebody wants to get into it and they can see what the engineer is saying, the status of our road system is. And then what's our plan? In 26, these are the roads that we currently anticipate we're gonna take care of.
The crazy
And
part is,
We are
what
gonna get that
do?
one posted.
Yeah.
But I like
And-
those other 2 and I'll make sure we get that
And-
posted as well.
And the thing with that too, is to educate people, your road may be completely falling apart. But so that we stop degradation on some of these other roads, so they don't get to that state and we're
Correct.
doing a full depth of repair.
Correct.
We're gonna take care of these roads.
Yeah.
First, and
Yeah.
then we're gonna get back to these others.
Yeah, and I think that's when we put out, so we just got our bids back on Monday for all the road projects we're gonna do. We'll get that report out on all the roads that we're gonna do, and then we'll have an explanation exactly what you said, because what we wanna do is focus 50% of our money is gonna go to stopping that before it's already too bad, right? 25 will go to those really bad ones, and 25 will go to roads that have been touched recently, but we want to make sure that they stay new and stay up on those kind of things. And so we'll explain how we're going to break that down and try to.
Are we already under contract for this year's work, or is that? yet
Yeah,
to be-
so Monday we got the bids back, so it looks like it's gonna be sticker parking. So we still gotta do our truth and bad advantages, but
They were the low bidder.
they were the low bidder, and we went through all their stuff and everything lined up, so.
The other thing that might be good too is, because a lot of people don't understand the hot mix isn't available yet.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's available
Think so.
till middle of February, or middle of April, late April.
Yeah, they're saying probably the second week of April. is
So a lot of
when
people see it's 80 degrees outside
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
Why aren't you fixing that
they're-
road?
Correct.
Why isn't the asphalt plant over on it? Come on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
I think just as much as we can educate
Yeah.
people, because a lot of people just don't understand that side of it.
Well, the kick in the teeth is gonna be, it's $15 this year, what's it gonna be next year?
Yeah, because you lost that $1 million that you had last year for
Mhm.
this year.
So that's the thing that petrifies me, is that the 800-pound elephant in the room is not the $15. It's the 45, 60.
I mean,
Nobody wants to talk about that. And
that's what the engineer's
That's
estimate was about $60.
true, but the report says if we keep doing the $15 a month,
Correct, but we'll
in
actually,
10 years, we actually will be
we're actually
lower
falling
end.
behind.
So
But I think that's all part of that education process, that you
Right.
put that together.
we don't have. That's the kick for future years. We don't have one. And that's what.
Isn't that outlined in the report?
Well, they have a recommendation for
Yeah,
that,
and that
but
was the 15.
we don't have, I mean, it
You
has
gotta
to, it
stand
comes from
back
the,
so that you,
it comes from the council on what number we pick.
So please tell me what you want. We'll raise your taxes by, I don't even say. But that's the key thing, right? Is that to educate people to make sure that they're not surprised. You know, do you do the shock and awe and say it could be this, it could be that, but we're trying to figure it out? Or do you come up with a plan first and then tell them? So that's the thing that has bugged me for a while, but.
That's a good question. I agree with the added information on the website, but there still are a lot of people in my household. My husband would never look at the computer site if it wasn't that I did. There's a lot of people that aren't going to use that website, and somehow that information needs to be given to them, whether it be, I heard one recommendation, a postcard. Even if somehow, I know I get automatic bills, maybe most people do, but somehow on the bottom of the mail-in use, it says, sign up for email notifications or something, so that people know that there is a place to go to. The website, I will admit, is better than it used to be, but it's still not that easy. And if you're not, I'm 65 and I have to have anybody older than, I shouldn't say that, because there are probably people more better on computer than I am, but for some of us who did not grow up with computers, it's not that easy to find the information. So I don't know. I don't envy you.
I think the notification thing is a problem, and it's not gonna go away. I mean, to try and get to everybody's method of understanding something is horrendous.
And it's costly too, if you're talking about mailing and
Yeah.
stuff. And people are like,
I mean-
why did you raise my taxes? Well, I sent you 14 postcards this year because you wanted to know.
So I assume everybody does not get a water or utility bill.
I don't.
No, there's about 25% that don't.
That don't get it. Well, okay, but if there's 25% that don't, that means 75% do. And that,
Everybody in the city gets a utility bill,
Just not necessarily.
but
electronic.
I get it
There's no paper.
automatically. There's no paperwork for me.
no, but that's what my question is. How many are getting paperwork?
The paper copies, I could ask Bryce and find out what that number is.
I mean, looks to me like we gotta find some method that most people get notified, and it's probably more than one method.
Sounds like what you're doing it though.
I mean,
We got the website, we got multiple
But is it
social
coming in?
media,
I don't-
and is it put on the paper mailing that sent out?
yeah, we had it on the paper mailing. Yep.
I mean, yeah, I
3 or
got
4
mine, I'm
different
just saying.
options. I agree with you. I think it's an apathy issue on the consumer's part. okay? People don't care. And then they see the bill go up and then they get upset.
Yeah,
Okay?
that's
Those-
when they
Those
pay
of us that
attention.
do care, we're involved, we're paying attention, so I'm not gonna feel bad for someone who doesn't know if they're not paying attention and they're not putting forth effort to follow it.
Any,
And I,
if they're putting a little bit, then I.
yeah, they're putting forth a little bit, but again, I feel like the city's doing, you know, their part, and I feel like we've done our part, because this has been discussions for a year plus, this fee, so anyway. At some point, there's gotta be some ownership and some responsibility put down on the consumer, so,
And if that's the case, then you gotta put up with the complaints.
yes,
I mean,
and they are.
Yeah, we understand that. And to be honest with you, we are not getting that many complaints, like, at least at the city level, like, I talked to the girls, last week, and at that time, we had about probably 25 calls total, and half of them were, hey, my bill went up, I might have a water leak, and it was like, well, no, we have this fee, and it's like, oh, okay, tell me about that fee. We kind of informed them some, and
I think
most people
though-
are pretty understanding once we have that
the
conversation.
bigger aspect is the only people you hear from are the ones that are not engaged in anything.
Yeah, correct.
And if they're not become engaged, you can't do anything.
Exactly.
about that.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think the bigger issue with this too, is Chris was saying, you're gonna have to bump it again next year, and then the next year. That's when you're really gonna start
And
getting
then
some
hire another
pushback.
employee
and
so that we can handle that, blah,
and-
blah, blah, yeah, it's a snowball that is pretty.
It is.
We could bond it, like some people were saying, oh, you should have gone out and bond, okay, well then, when you don't pass that, then what do you do?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that you kind of have, well, the resident needs to be involved, okay. How would you like it to be involved, and how would you like to move forward if it doesn't pass or something? So it's a big old mess, and I know that, but again, I think, to the point that we need to communicate to the citizens what the plan is, be it nasty or not nasty. I think,
Mhm.
literally you need pros and cons, property tax, fee. So that it's black and white as to what you're doing. And if I don't care if you want a property tax, we can do property tax, but there's some significant problems to that if you need this number and it doesn't matter what that number is, you're gonna get it.
Mhm.
The problem is that it's gonna be more it's already a lot of it on the back of the citizens as opposed to the businesses that actually are beating up the roads. So, it's gonna be even more pushed to the.
And I was gonna say something, the other thing about the property tax is if we would have done the property tax portion, the businesses, we would have had some businesses that would have only paid the exact same thing as a citizen, where the way we did this fee, we could take that and do a trip calculator. And so, for instance, Smith's, theirs is over $1,000. Like that's a big difference, but if we would have done the tax way, they wouldn't have been paying that kind of money. So then it would have been more on the backs of the citizens.
Can I
Back
follow
to your
up?
pay for use.
Can I follow up on that, though? But how was that decided on the businesses? Because I don't agree with that, and I just want to have a quick discussion about that, because it's not Smith's that's using it. It's us as consumers that are using Smith's, and my concern is if we keep going after businesses to pay for all the stuff we want, it's gonna piss them off. and they're not gonna wanna
But we
come.
did go full bore.
Okay,
and we
Far
did.
West did full bore, and so like Maverick pays $6,000 a month. But so we did a
90% discount.
yeah,
Okay.
and then I thought we
But-
put a max on it, but
Okay,
We
so
did,
it's
too.
one of those things that we thought about that,
Okay,
what you're
good.
saying, because there's enough impact fees that this other fee would be even more horrendous, and so.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so to give you an idea that the businesses, so a citizen, a single family house is $15. A businesses, we still took that fee, we gave a 90% discount, so they're paying $1.50, but then we have a trip calculator on how much business they bring into the city. And they took that we took that $1.50 and times it by whatever
So-
trips they have.
Who follows up with that? And this could be a question for council. If we're starting to get pushback from businesses saying, hey, I don't want to do business in North Ogden because you guys are zinging me. The businesses are taking a risk by coming in here. And in my opinion, it should be the citizens that are paying for that kind of stuff, because the citizen's the one using the business, it's not the other way around. So I think we need to tread lightly on that. And that's coming from a business guy who takes risks and has failed and succeeded on both sides. So again, my point is, let's not attack the businesses. Let's not expect the businesses to pay for stuff that we use.
And we understood that. And so that's why we've built it the way we have, but we are gonna watch very closely for the businesses and say,
The
you know,
businesses are- I mean, you don't wanna affect them
Right.
because, I
correct.
mean, that's a
wanna
big
encourage
revenue
them.
source, so you wanna find reason to get them here, not drive them out.
Cause
The soda shops were the ones that we talked about.
yeah,
Kind of the,
that was one that was close, but I mean, to Councilman Pulver's point, like, there's cities like, Far West that they said, no, you know what, we're gonna stick this whole thing on the backs of the businesses.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, there's some fees in Far West, like a Maverick, I think is close to $6,000 a month.
You've got a question?
I live on the edge of the city, so if I leave my house and I only drive one block on city roads, then I don't have to pay this, do I? Because I'm not using any city roads. I'm sorry, I don't remember what your name was.
Mike.
Mike, I agree with Mike. So now I've got these neighbors that are upset over this. So I tell them, you know, look at this city, go to the city meetings. There needs to be a place on that website where they can go in and find that information and find the comparisons, just like we've said, property tax and why they're being charged the amount they did it. There needs to be some easy, and not just for this, but for, you know, standard questions. There needs to be an easy way for them to be able to find that and get some detailed information.
So we got quite a bit of information on the website. It's
I
right on
logged
the
in,
front
got the
page.
site here,
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty simple. I haven't done a deep dive yet, but I think the request that you're making is already there.
Okay.
Now, I would say to you, give them more feedback, see what they wanna know, and then we can add that to the website.
and that's what, yeah, that's
That's
what Mike was
information.
saying.
Yeah.
I think some of the links,
Let's,
because
You
Far
know,
West
they
had
would
some.
like a phone call
Oh,
that says that their bill's gonna go
give
up and
them,
this is
give them
why.
my phone number.
I mean, I don't know what else to
Yeah.
say. I know that that's a lifelong problem, there is getting the information out.
Zoom through those, any other
Yeah.
thoughts on this? I wanna keep moving. I'd like to try and be out of here by 4 o'clock today, and I'd like 10-15 minutes at the end to discuss some of my thoughts on the last meeting. So can we zip through the yellow sheets? Is there any other thoughts or
Yeah.
comments?
Well, I got questions on that yellow sheets, but I can just
Okay.
talk to somebody after the meeting.
Okay.
I think they're easy to answer.
No, but we're online where people
mhm.
Oh, yeah.
can listen if they
So-
choose to.
So I looked through the yellow sheets, looked like one area was going up by like 50%. I'm assuming there's a budget or a building or something's gotta be done, a big maintenance. One was going up by like 4%, one came down by like 50 or 40%, something like that.
Something like that.
So the project was done last year, that came off the books, got a small increase in the one and a big increase on the other one. And I believe it was, which one had the big increase? That's what I wanted. Good questions on that.
Water was water,
Water had $1 million for a while.
but the idea is that with those enterprise funds, we don't have, a standard, we're not spending $3 million a year, every single year in a project. The projects come, the projects go, they dip, they flow. And so you won't necessarily see it just inch up every year. You'll sometimes see it go down, sometimes you'll see it go up. The idea with those is we want to make sure that whatever we're doing, that we have that plan to be paid for by utility billings over the next, 5 years, which is why I don't want to step on your toes.
No,
but-
perfect. No,
But that's why we did the 5-year plan, sort of look ahead a couple of meetings ago, so you could kind of see that there's sort of sometimes we spend money more in one year than in another on capital projects and just kind of leapfrogs ahead. And so that's sort of the high level answer.
And then my other response to the water one going up significantly is a well, you take your wells, your meter change outs, a reservoir, they're pretty long processes and sometimes can take up to 3 years, but in that 5-year plan, it might be that it's starting this year, but that $1 million increase for that well to be drilled here in zone 1, which is the flats basically. I mean, that might be a 3-year process, but once we can get it approved by the council, it's one of those things that's just that will roll for the next couple years until we can get that whole well done. And so it looks heavy on that very first year but we're not even gonna be close to spending that whole amount in that first year. It's just because it's one of those processes
it's
that take a
budgeted.
long time.
It was budgeted, it's gonna sit there, and then when the bills start rolling in 2-3 years down the road, then I'll have the money there.
Correct, because we'll have some
That makes
property
sense.
acquisition in that first year and some engineering in that first year, and then the second year, you're talking about drilling it.
Yep.
And the third year, you're talking about building the building, so it's one of those things that it looks pretty significant in the big scheme of things, but the way it goes, it's
Do
pretty.
you
drawn
have a
out.
gross ballpark number? Is it a 10 million, 20 million spread out, $1 million a year? Yeah, is that question? make
No,
sense?
that is when we put that number in, it's the full
That's the
amount.
whole thing.
Correct,
So it's budgeted this year,
yeah,
but
and
then
but
it'll be spent
that
out.
money
as
will
it's-
roll
Gotcha.
over.
So then
'cause-
next year, that's gonna drop, the budget will drop by that?
Yeah,
much?
you'll see
Yeah.
a pretty good drop.
Legislatively, the way that it works is when we approve a capital project and it gets approved. I say legislatively, Utah law says we approve a capital project, and once the council approves it, it can just roll forward. But so say we're not quite sure when we're gonna start a project, it might start at the end of June, we're not quite sure. It might start in July, we're gonna budget it in June. Because that way, if we can get started on it, we might as well.
Yep.
And then whatever happens is whatever we spend in June, the difference, what we spent, we budgeted rolls over to the subsequent year.
Right.
And the only time we've got to go back to council is if it goes up.
It goes beyond that $1 million.
That makes sense. And so like I said, so that was the water one. Then the other one that came down by the 20% or whatever, it was a similar deal, end of a project.
I think the tour one went down, hold on, let me just.
Well, he's looking, one of the things we talked about last year is this group.
Yeah.
Was looking at whether it was cheaper to buy the water versus pull it out of the ground.
Yeah.
Did that ever get done?
So we've had some of those conversations. We kind of did a mixture. So what we did is we actually put, some emergency, meters between us and Pleasant View and one between us and Ogden, to say, hey, and we got an agreement put in place with both of those cities saying, hey, if we're in an emergency, because we have the water to build out for the city. But when we were looking at purchasing it from like Weaver Basin, you have to buy these blocks of water, and if you use it or you don't use it, you're still paying for this block of water, right? And so we found that it was very expensive. That's the pickle that Pleasant View's in right now, is they bought this block of water from Weaver Basin, 4 years ago, and now they're stuck like, okay, well, we have to take this metered water and we have to put it in our system, even though we have the water to do it ourselves. And so, yeah, so what we did is we said, you know what, we're going to kind of find a balance between those two. So if we ever get into a problem, we already have an agreement with Ogden. We can pull water from Ogden, in an emergency, say that we either had a well go down or something like that, and when we need to purchase some water, we can purchase that water from Ogden. There's a meter just right there by Frank's Auto that we would pull that water. We would pay Ogden City for that usage, but only for the usage. We didn't have to buy this big block of water from them. And we did that same agreement with Pleasant View too. So we kind of got the best of both worlds in that scenario.
So is our water system connected on both sides, Ogden and Pleasant View essentially?
They are with just
a meter
a meter. Yep. And then we have some dual checks so that.
So vice versa, if they need it, we've got it. Interesting. Okay.
And the way we work it out is that we have shut off valves. So both of the valves are shut off on both. So
Yep.
to get water from Ogden, we have to obviously work with them and say, hey, you're going to open your valve. I'm going to open our valve. And everything will go through the meter at that point. So it's not one of those things where we'd have to worry about their water back feeding into our system or anything like that.
One that's down is stormwater.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
45% down
Yeah.
there.
And we'll take another look at that. I think that it's down because we have to allocate some of our time to get some impact fee projects done. What's listed on here are projects that we wanna do out of our capital funding, if that makes sense. But we've got some impact fee projects that are kind of waiting in reserve that we need to kind of tackle that come off of the impact fee fund. It isn't represented in here because of the way the budget's set up, but if it makes, I think it would make sense, and it's something that I'll be working on before we get the budget finalized, is to show that impact fee transfer more transparently into the, so it'll start in the impact fee fund where we collect the money, then it'll flow into the stormwater, and then it'll flow into capital. So, and then it'll go off capital. It goes four ways. It'll flow off capital and go into our assets.
And
So,
the two biggest things about stormwater was the pond was on the last 2 years before this. So that's why it was so high. And now
Came down.
that's gonna come down.
Yeah.
And all the projects we are doing are impact fee eligible. And so we're still spending some money, but it's impact fee money. It's not gonna come out of the stormwater fund for those big projects.
Do you finance, I'm a reasonably savvy finance guy. Do you try and make this hard for me to understand? Cause I'm in my brain, like looking at the charts, trying to follow it, and it's just, and like,
So-
I'm reasonably smart.
so, I mean, I'm still sort of like, I'm looking at it from the point of view of the citizen looking at this. I know that it looks cumbersome because there's so many different funds.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to funnel it one way and then roll it all the way
I
through.
get it.
And we don't have an easy way to explain that.
Yeah.
And but where we don't have to do that, I wanna try to make that
Yeah.
easier. My intent of what I wanna do with this is to. It would be really nice if I could have a sheet that says, here's how our impact fee flows in our budget. You just go step one, it goes here, then here, then here, then here. So that you can kind of watch it and you can follow it through mostly if you're financially savvy. People who are laymen probably don't care as much. It's really, it's not that it's not that it's new money, it's just.
It's
Yeah,
just
no,
where
It goes
the
from one
coffers
bucket
they
to
have
the
to
next
go to,
bucket, to
yeah.
the next bucket.
Again, I consider myself reasonably savvy with numbers and that. Boy, it's tricky for me to follow, so.
Yes, and this is, yes,
Okay.
I can understand that, and I would say that the impact fee funds in the city, sorry. The impact fee funds in the city are probably the most difficult things to follow.
Yeah.
Because it flows through 4 different funds before it finally settles in its right bucket. And part of that's because of the strict way in which we have to handle the finances, because it has to be tied strictly to growth. It can't be for, just everything. It has to be, the engineers say you can only spend this amount. It has to be for growth related infrastructure. And
I get it.
so,
On building maintenance, we jumped from 60,000 to 423,000.
Yeah, was that the one I saw? There was I was assuming it was a bill. Is that on stormwater? No, that was on,
It's on water.
Yeah,
I thought that was a building you guys were gonna build or something.
Yeah, that shouldn't have got parked there, cause I think that was for,
Oh, power for pumping too. Keep going on the building.
that's where the water, or the building would land for the new well. But I don't know if we should have landed it there. We need to, let's take a look at that. Thanks for catching that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I saw that one. I assumed that was a building, but you're building a new building.
No, well, I mean, we are building a new building for the well house, but that should have been part of that capital number.
Okay,
Part of that million.
Yeah.
okay.
And if it is 1.4 million, then it still should be part of capital. It shouldn't be split into the
Yeah,
building. So I'll follow up with
the
that.
other one was the power for pumping, I think is what it said. It went up by from like 30 to 100. Went up 110% from
yeah.
basically 100 to 230. We get some really good pumps or something?
So, the power for pumping it's always, it's a snow game. So this is him trying to guess how much more we're going to have to pump. So in a very good snow year, everything comes out of the springs
Okay.
and everything is gravity fed.
Okay.
Except for, maybe
Yep.
2 months in the winter where we have to use the wells to pump everything back up the hill and then let it
Okay.
gravity feed back down. in these bad snow years, so because of what we had, we're going to have to, all three of our really good wells are down here. So we're pumping everything up the hill and we're gonna have to gravity feed down. So you'll see that power for pumping, and we can give you some trends, but that power for
Yep.
pumping does this
That-
massive.
That's what I was gonna say, cause this is not the first bad year we've had in water. So
Correct.
does that guess based on 2, 3, 4 years ago when we had low water years?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's going back and looking at trending and saying, okay, this is comparative to 22 or
Okay.
21. So like, let's
Okay.
take that number and we'll maybe add a little bit, percentage onto that. And so, yes, it's using trending for that. But, and if we had a huge snow year again this winter, then you would see that thing drop again way low. So.
And that's money that just basically comes in and out of the general fund.
Correct.
Okay, yeah. that makes
Well,
sense.
yeah, no, that one stays in the water fund.
So, okay.
Yeah.
good.
And you've got drives on all the
Yep.
pump houses.
Yep, and VFDs on all that stuff. So like our pumping system is very, very efficient. It's really just a guessing game on like how long can we use the springs before we're gonna have to start using the wells. And I'll be honest with you, that number is a very conservative number. Like I don't think we'll touch that number, but it's one of those things. It's like, hey, we have to put a number in here that, we think that there's a chance that we could get to for power for pumping.
You've also got $150,000 in here for purchase equipment, trucks or pumps or,
So that's the trucks, that's that rollover. So, that the difference is, I think the way Peter does it, he's very transparent in the way that we do that truck exchange program. Before we used to just say, hey, we're gonna buy these trucks and we're gonna sell them for the exact same price. So we didn't stick that number in there. But
that's fine.
going forward, it's just to kind of give that more transparency.
Is that still working?
Yes.
Cause John said that was.
Last year was starting to, it felt like it was starting to fizzle out a little bit. There was some more rebates this year and we went away from the Fords, which I think is what kind of got us in trouble. Went back to Chevy. There was a little more rebates than Chevy, and there's a lot better resale with some of the Chevy trucks. We've had really good success with the Trail Boss. The only reason we went away from the Chevy is just because they were having some manufacturing issues, but now they've got that all figured out, and we've got build dates on everything, and so I think we're good, and I think
We like to put the full price in because again, if it doesn't work out, we wanna know.
Yeah, cause the comment I think says net zero.
yeah. And that's what it was like, right? We would just say, hey, we're buying it for this much, then we get about $7,000 in rebates, and we sell them for basically that bought or that price without the rebates. So we bought them and sold them for about the exact same price, and we've been able to do that pretty consistently. I mean, since 2015. Yeah, in 23 we had a little where we had to purchase a little bit. But in 20, we made thousands on trucks because we were like buying them for 42 after rebates, and we were selling them for 44 because that's where the market was still at. So we were actually making money in some of those. And so we had built a nest a little bit. But this last year was that when we left the boards.
Answers my question, Jeff.
So I guess it's talking conservatism, and I agree with that. And I think the only thing that gets you, it's not in trouble, but at the end, when you consolidate everything, it says, oh, well, we have to raise taxes. But if we're conservative and, which is not a bad thing, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but at the end of the day, I don't want to raise taxes over conservatism. And I think that's where the previous mayor and I had some arguments. I said, why can't we use previous year's bonus to fund the next year? And I think that's, we dabbled into that, and I think there's been a lot of, you can't do that type of thing. And I'm like, well, we know, for audit for each year, we budgeted for this. Some years we raised property taxes, and then we had a surplus. I'm like, well, how the hell does that work? Because, we raised taxes, but yet we had a surplus at the end of the year for whatever reason. And I'm not saying it was right or wrong, and I'm pretty sure it was fine for what happened. But that's the thing that the council struggles with, is that we need to raise taxes, and we're like trusting the numbers. And if the numbers are, way too conservative. And I think that's the thing is that what staff worries about, not worries, but struggles with is coming up with a number that's gonna cover them, but yet not too much. And I think that's, if you guys have any ideas, I think that's what I struggle with is I don't wanna raise taxes. And that's why I was saying, hey, raise the revenue higher on sales tax just cause. And Peter yelled at me for that. I mean, being facetious, but-
Well, I mean,
You know, I mean, it's one of those things that you're playing this game, cause you're guessing at certain things
yeah.
to balance your budget, and at least we're balancing it, you know, I mean, that's the first thing.
I think
But at the same time,
I was gonna say, it's kind of hard, it's a hard game to play, because if you try to hit the bullseye and you miss when you're too
Yeah.
low, then
you're
you're in big trouble.
Right.
State really doesn't like that, so we try to aim a little high, but you can also aim too high. So,
And
I
that's what
mean,
the state was killing us.
One,
about this
one
year.
thing would be good, because we are probably gonna be dealing with the, you know, not getting too big of a surplus, but also being cautious with our taxpayer dollars, is help us come up with what you feel is comfortable. You know, personally, I think like $500,000 surplus at the end of the year, that's, to me, as good as a bullseye. Because we've been careful, we've been cautious.
Yeah, what is that?
But if you raise taxes that year, that's the thing that worries me is that we get this mentality that we'll raise taxes, but then we get a surplus at the end of the year. Well, what the hell did you raise my taxes? You know,
Oh, I
for
know.
for people that know that, you know, and I think that's the thing, goes back to education. Like Brenda was saying is that, you know, until people know, and then you start getting some people that, anyway.
Okay, yeah, but the government is so much more volatile than than a normal business. I mean, in a business, you can say this and this and this, and things are more standard there, but here, I mean, it depends on the weather, it depends on, okay, now your roads are gonna fall apart this
Material
year. I
costs,
mean,
yeah.
It's just so volatile that, you know, I just look on here and all of a sudden, wow, there's this big increase. Well, having been in this business for so long.
Correct.
I know, yeah, you know, it's not like a business. If they need more money, they can go out and request a loan. I mean, we don't have that.
Well, we can do that too, but it's
Yeah, but,
crushes.
but it's more difficult because you have to prove more, so.
Yeah.
You know, I agree that, and so but somehow we've just gotta show that, yeah, we were aggressive this year and we didn't use it, but we're considering that in the future.
Yeah, and I'd rather be more aggressive with revenue projection and not raise taxes. And then if we do fall short, that we can use that rainy day fund
agree.
to fund a little bit as opposed to,
Yeah.
you know, having a
Sometimes
surplus
you
at the
gotta
end.
address that.
It's hard to not recognize, it's hard to explain that away, even though it was all good, you know, hey, we saved money, but why'd you raise my taxes? You know, so that's the fine line we're dancing around most of the time in council is trying to figure out how to not do that. So anyway, sorry.
I had one
Hey,
last
Mark,
thing
yeah,
on these yellow
go ahead.
sheets. Some of the things, the comments in there tie back to growth of the city, like needing more garbage cans, more meters, those type of things. Are those offset by charges?
So, like for garbage, for instance, they're not needing new garbage cans for new people. Those people pay for those as part of their impact fees. It's replacements. And so,
Right, but it's, some of it was tied to new growth.
yeah, and so
The
the
comment.
impact fee, okay. So the impact fee would pay for the new growth portion. But like I know, I did notice that like he put in a comment, like we need more cans. The can thing is, we purchased, so when we decided to go from Waste Management to Republic back in like 2004, at that point, we bought all new cans for the whole city. And so there's some people in our city that have had cans for 21 years now. Well, those cans are now starting to fall apart more and more often. So we used to be able to get away with, hey, we're gonna replace 300 cans this year. Well, now we're 21 years down the road, and so now it's more like 450 or 500 cans. And so yeah, he says more, but I think some of it was tied to growth, which impact fees would cover that.
So it is an offset on,
Yeah.
on some of it.
So-
Yes,
So, but the city is still not funding, but covering the full cost, right?
correct,
We had talked many years ago about splitting it or doing something. But-
correct. Like,
And that's still a possibility.
for instance, yeah, and that's something, I mean, if you guys come up with a recommendation, like Pleasant View City, when you need a can replaced, they make the resident pay 50%. The part where I've always struggled with that conversation is 90%, I shouldn't say 90, at least 50% of the time when your can breaks, it was because of either, you could blame it on the truck driver, or you could also blame it on the resident that they put
65
tons of
pounds.
concrete
Yeah.
in there, and that's why it was so heavy that they had to squeeze it extra hard and it broke. So there's always this conversation of like, well, I didn't break my can. The garbage truck picked it up, crushed it. The can's 20 years old. Like,
And that's
you
not
know,
a
why
big
should
ticket
I pay
item.
for that? So it's one of those
Yeah.
things that's always been back and forth. Like, should we make the residents pay for a portion of their cans or their replacement cans? Should we not? I mean, and that has always been a discussion. I think it's probably a good discussion for this group. I mean, to get your guys' opinions on that, but if you have thoughts on that.
I have a thought, but not on the garbage can. I'm just listening to this conversation. I think this is a really good way to do the yellow sheets. We've looked at them and we come with our questions. I don't think we should do away with them. Because to me, that's part of the budget, is knowing the changes and the percentages and what we're paying out. But I think this is a good discussion, a good way to,
Yeah, we just have to identify the problem areas,
yeah.
discuss them previously, and then.
Yeah, rather than going through each line, which the first year when I was here, I needed that because I had no understanding of it.
Yeah.
But I think this has been a really good discussion. And as far as garbage cans,
What does a garbage can cost?
$68.
$60.
I think
Something to think about.
people might hate me, but I think we've had ours since they replaced them. My husband's put a handle on it. Other than that, there's nothing wrong with that. We don't have any cracks. We don't have. So I think if they're taken care of, they can last you 20, 25 years. I have no problem with paying half.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem paying half for that to do. But mine's already been replaced. The wind blows mine down the road on a regular basis, even if I put 60 pounds of concrete. So,
My husband will not put it out until the morning of, because if he puts it out, either the wind blows or it rains.
and my wife picked our garbage can up yesterday down the road because we were out of town, so.
Oh, there you go.
And then I'm not
Stay
taking
home.
garbage in the neighbor's yard, so. Okay, I want to move on, to one of the, I'd like to go back and discuss, some benefits in that from the last discussion. Are we okay to move on? Any other thoughts? Okay, so I met with Mayor Berube about a month ago, talked about some stuff, and he's got obviously 10 years of mayor experience. I listened to your presentation last week, Katie, and I wrote down some things. This conversation, it's kind of awkward. I did put that in my email, that whenever you're talking about compensation to employees, the employers always think they're overpaid. The employee always thinks they're underpaid. So for me, my background is small business. I'm just curious in this room, whose background, well, first of all, do we know what the largest employer is in the country?
Country?
In the country?
Federal government.
Federal government?
Defense.
No?
BlackRock?
What's that?
Walmart.
They're all good guesses, but the largest employer is considered small business. Okay, it's
Oh.
like 45%. Okay.
You're talking category, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a trick question, but again, I come from small business. Does anybody else in here come from small business? And then you go to the medium side, you're talking the government, you're talking, well, government can be considered big business. Anything over 50 or 500 employees, depending on who considers it's medium or large business. I'm just curious, does anybody have any background, like Berube worked with Associated Foods, that would be probably a large business. What is everybody's background here? I'm just curious because I don't know. I'm small business, self-employed my whole career.
I don't
Got it.
work, so I have no business.
Okay,
My husband
Mom.
worked for middle ground.
so mom, best job, worst job in the universe. Okay, my wife's the same way. Steve, what were you?
I worked at.
You were state, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Government.
okay. So as I did some research, I talked to my buddy who's out on base. He works in the finance department. And I said to him, with a federal employee, what percentage of pay does the government pay in addition, meaning as benefits? So what percentage of pay is their benefits? Does that question make sense? And do you guys have any idea? For example, if an employee of the federal government on base is making 100 grand, what are they also receiving in compensation? What dollar amount are they receiving in addition, which is their health, blah, 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 benefits? Any ideas on that? Because this shocked me.
40, 45?
Any other
I'd
guess?
say 40.
I'd say 40. University was about 40.
75% is what he told me. Okay,
That seems high.
that's what I thought.
That's the federal
Federal
government.
government. Okay.
Private sector is different.
Okay, private sector,
I did read an article recently that said the federal, because of some of the demands on the DoD thing, that they have inched up at all.
Yep.
Especially with engineers, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Haven't heard 75 though.
he told me 75 last
Wow.
week, and he's in the finance department. He's like, oh, I know exactly what it costs, and it shocked, okay? In small business with me, I tried to be 10 to 25%, okay? So John said at the last meeting I was here to look at the state's right to know website. I did. I looked up one person, it was John. I wish he was here. I apologize for this. And this is where it gets a little bit awkward. Any idea what John is his compensation versus his benefit? And I'm telling you all this with a means to an end. Okay, any idea what North Ogden City with John? I only looked up John. I was gonna look you up too, but I didn't. Okay. Any guess on it?
On what percent benefits are of their total package?
40%.
40%, we're close,
I'd say
okay, 40 to 43. His pay on the website was like 156, and again, I apologize for that, but this is a budget meeting. Pay was 156, his benefits were 70, so you're about 45% in my head real quick, okay? That seemed pretty high again, for me, coming from small business. It's good to hear your experience at Weaver State, and you were saying in
Mine was 30.
30, okay? So.
Well, mine was 30 at work.
30 hour, okay. And again, the whole point of all this for me is, again, as a small business guy, where I take the risk, I get the reward of the failure, and I've taken both. When I look at a government employee, my buddy on base, who makes about 100 grand, and he's getting another 75 in pension and benefits, as a small business guy, that seems like a lot. When I look at John's payroll, and again, I'm assuming across the board in North Ogden City, it's gonna be similar.
Yeah, it's across the board.
Okay, so it's about 45%. So as we talk about wages of employees, and this is mostly for the council members, we talk about wages and we just, show the dollar amount and how they're fairly compensated, blah, 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 and I don't disagree with that. When you tack on the benefits seem a bit high. So when you add all that together, this is part of my question, do we need to be paying over market value? And again, the market can be compared to other cities, and I understand that market, but when I'm comparing it to small business, it seems like it's high, okay? Now,
Can I comment?
yes, please. Yeah, I want it to be a discussion.
Two factors.
Yes.
When you get that percent, you're timed it against, it could be a lower rate or a lower salary too.
Mhm.
So it depends, that salary level really determines that percent, right?
Okay,
So
I
if
would-
if you're getting paid $20,000
And they're across the
a year,
board.
and I don't know where we are with the average rate, but that's gonna, and you give the base benefits, there's gonna be a higher percent for benefits.
Explain that again to my small brain.
Okay, so
Your lower
they're
wage,
paying
you're
tax,
paying
they're
higher.
paying $10,000 in benefits.
Okay,
If you're making $20,000, that's gonna be a higher rate than somebody making 15,000.
right.
So that comes into play also.
Does it come in? This may be a question for you, Katie, so my whole conclusion, and again, I want this to be a discussion. I'm not trying to come after everybody, but also I Googled the average income for Weaver County. So we all know that everything online is 100% accurate. So this is what I'm doing. Again, forgive me. What do we think the median income for Weaver County household? We'll do the median income for males that were full-time employees. What do we think that is again? Any idea? In Weaver County,
91.
To Katie.
I'd say 70 something.
53.
53.
Again, it's on the internet, so this what they said, the median income for males that are full-time employees is 53, females is 38. the median family income was 80. Okay, so my point on all this is, again, this is to the council, as we're looking at employees in the city, you know, if they're making, you know, 60, 80, 100 grand a year, 150, whatever it is, and they're getting another 40% in benefits, that seems extremely reasonable, and in my opinion, high compared to the county average. And again, as a small business guy, it seems high. So is there an area that we can reduce the benefits on? And some of my questions were, you know, do we need to pay them for their time they don't take off? Do they, you know, some of these little bonus things, is that necessary? Is there, you know, is there a way to reduce the expense to the taxpayer? Because I feel like that is our responsibility in this meeting, and I feel like it's your responsibility as elected officials. You know, the taxpayer elected you guys. So is there a way that we can save the taxpayer money? I'm not asking for an answer. It's something to think about, though, that as we look at averages and I can tell you there were years. Well, another question is, I've heard, and I wanted to ask John this, and maybe somebody else can confirm this, that John started a new side business. Great. I'm 100% fan of everybody trying their hand at small business. I was told that he got some time off, meaning he was paid. The city council in North Ogden voted to allow him to use some of his time at work to work on his side business.
No.
Is there any truth to that?
No.
You should ask.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Cause I did not like when I hear that.
Yeah.
Another question, Katie, how much overtime, meaning some of the employees are salary, how many hours a week are we working extra?
For salaried employees?
Yes.
I mean, not.
Yeah.
They're not getting paid. We don't get paid. We get paid for 40 hours.
Yeah, salary is fixed.
So I understand that, but how many, do you work 40 hours or do you work 45 or 60?
How many don't you work?
It depends. I mean, it literally.
Dare say probably closer to 50 at least, because he works all day, then he comes to these meetings. So, per day, yeah, I think he works much more than his 40 hours.
Yeah,
Well, I was just gonna say, it flexes, and the reason, you know, with salaries and this is things, it's like, talk about cherry days, for example. You know, all of our salaried employees are gonna be working on July 4th, which is a day that we normally wouldn't be working. So are we getting paid for that time? No. Are we getting paid for the hours that we worked the previous week? So we flex our time a little bit, which makes it nice. We really encourage our employees who are salaried to not work more than that. There's actually the retirement, Utah State retirement that doesn't allow us to work over that. Go ahead,
those might work over what? What is that?
40 hours a week, so 80 hours of pay period.
Or get compensated for
Or
that.
get compensated for that. So, and then as far as like our regular full-time employees, you know, overtime has to be approved by the supervisor and department head. Nobody can just go out and choose to work their overtime.
I mean,
So
typically, it's in an emergency situation.
You know, so being a new person on the council, so I've spent, since I started, on looking at the financial operation, because I'm kind of like, you know, if I'm gonna be on the council, I need to understand. So this is what I found in terms of just general staffing. I found that the city of North Ogden, because of pressures from outside, have promoted from within in amazing ways. They'll take a person here and transition them here and here, and you're an example. Casey, you started where?
Overworks, utility maintenance order one.
You're now the treasurer. So over time, there's been this internal policy that has helped them maintain their staff in ways that if they didn't do that, they would lose them. So in terms of the way they manage their staff, just in the short time that I've seen it, I've been impressed how many hats North Ogden employees wear. It's kind of shocking. So, and that's helped maintain the staff. And you do regular salary comparisons too, don't you? Every 10 years, 5 years?
tell us
Oh,
salary.
yearly.
Salaries
6
compared
months.
with the local.
Oh, we look at them every 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that gave me assurance also that there was some management oversight to make sure you don't get these salaries that are out of balance. But the benefits are kind of dictated. I mean, they're not, I don't think, it didn't look like any of the benefits were exorbitant compared with other similar cities.
No, and that's kind of what John mentioned at the beginning. We did get a spreadsheet and I'd be happy to send it out just so everybody can kind of have a clear understanding of the local agencies that we compare ourselves to. This is a list from all across the United States, all across Utah, but it will show you that we are pretty in the middle. You know, some might think we're higher, some might think we're lower, but if you look at the average, we are pretty in line with what we are comparing to.
Sure. And what I'm saying is I'm making another comparison because
Yeah.
it's small business.
Yeah.
The benefits are exorbitant. They're astronomical. I'm just giving you my personal plans, like $1,800 a month.
Yeah.
I have a $30,000 deductible.
Yeah.
You can't get much crappier insurance than what I've got. And my entire career has been that way. So again, I understand cities are comparing with each other. But when the largest employer, and I'm gonna say in North Ogden City as well, is small business. You know, when we compare everybody apples to apples, to me, it seems like the city employees are pretty well compensated and the benefits, in my opinion, are a teeny bit high. So that may be something to look at. It's simply a conversation. And again,
You're just
and
asking.
it's good for me to hear you guys.
And I asked too, I
Yeah.
asked the same thing.
Because in my background is pretty extreme in small business. My buddy's background is pretty extreme with the federal government. Feels like the city's kind of right in the middle.
Mhm.
Anyway, thoughts on that? Yes.
You go first.
Well, I'm just curious, is there something specific in the benefits that you want to see changed?
I'm not gonna lie, the more I dig into it, the more it makes me angry, so I stop digging into it, because I've never had benefits. Okay?
I can
So
understand
I
that.
don't know, I stopped. I mean, when I hear they're getting a bonus, you know, and then I'm like, what the heck? Like, and I forget
Well,
what,
hold on, we don't
We don't get bonus.
We don't get bonus.
call it a different word. When you get it, you're paying $1,000 towards,
That's healthcare, that's for the health
Right,
savings account, so HSA,
Okay.
we don't get bonuses, those are
Okay.
two
when,
separate things.
when you're giving somebody money to pay towards an HSA, we're arguing over the word bonus.
Yeah.
I'm simply saying,
Yeah, just, it's a benefit.
it's a benefit, it's another benefit. So I stopped looking into it, okay, because again, my situation is pretty extreme. To where, like I said, everything's on me, you know, my HSA is if I can come up with money, if I can earn money and put it in my HSA. Nobody gives me money towards my HSA, so.
And
yeah.
I come from, my husband worked for Great Salt Lake Minerals. That was our whole job, our whole married life. And coming from that, these benefits for the city seem very normal or actually kind of small to me.
Yeah,
For what we
I mean,
got.
that's the other extreme.
Yeah.
But it's
I
perspective.
mean, he never made $100,000 a year.
Say that again.
He never made $100,000 a year, so there wasn't a lot of money. But, and honestly, when I went home after last week, I thought, I am so glad that I raised my kids when there was traditional insurance, because having 4 kids right now, paying whatever the premium is, and then having to come up with between $5,000 and $10,000 deductible, we couldn't have done it. Even if I'd have worked, I don't think we could have done it.
Well, you could have, because that's exactly what I had to do. Okay, so it sucks.
But you
But it's doable.
but you have an opportunity to make more money, right? My
Everybody
husband
has an
made,
opportunity to make more money.
well, I understand what you're saying, but that's,
It's risk versus what, yeah.
yeah.
So the two major differences probably from yours and theirs is the health insurance and the retirement. That's probably the
Sure.
bulk of the.
Well,
No, we didn't get retirement, so ours was strictly on us for
But
retirement.
I think when things come up that the council, you know, cause we took off the, if you don't pay in your 401k or whatever it's called,
Yeah, you're right.
that you don't get that. So that, I mean, there's certain things that I think we're slowly chipping away at, things that might be too much. And I agree with you, but at the same time, I think there's this balance between retention
Mhm.
and retraining, because having to do all the things you need to find a new person, retrain them and get them recertified, sometimes outweighs the cost of actually just paying the person you got. So,
I understand that.
yeah, so.
I've
my-
hired and fired, unfortunately, many
Yeah,
people.
too many
I
people.
get it.
So my point is that for the city standpoint, they have to come up with what is their standard, and that's what they're trying to meet and fight against others to do that. So do we fight with small business, or do we fight with government, or do we fight with other cities? So they've picked the city. And I think, from the standpoint of what can we do to look at it, I think that's comparison is the best thing we can possibly do.
Yeah.
Versus trying to, and this is not gonna sound right, nickel and dime certain things, because as a city, we need to pay somebody that's doing things that they could do next door. Cause if not, then we're just gonna be hiring and replacing
Yeah,
on a constant
yeah.
basis, which we were.
I understand that, and I simply wanted to throw some of that out there, most of the council.
Right, but there's still, but I think
Got a lot of self-employed people in this community, guys that are making 50 grand a year as an electrician. And if they're sitting in a meeting, they're not getting paid.
right, but if there's a
No.
benefit, I think what Brendan's point was is that if there's something that you're like, this is just horrible. I think that's what we'd like to hear.
You don't want to hear me say that,
But
I'm
if,
coming from an extreme background.
it's fine, I think, but if there's certain things that resonate with others, I think that's the whole point, is to bring up, your idea of cementing in the pool resonates with my wife. But does it resonate with everybody else? No. But I think that's the point, is that once you start bringing up ideas and there's other things and other people that have the same perspective, all of a sudden you have this, well, let's go do that. That makes more sense.
And my thought is when you're when you don't compare to other cities, at least in what we do here, if we don't compare to other cities and we take your idea of small market, all of that money that you would save by saving benefits, I promise you would turn around and be putting it into training, because we would start losing people left and right. We'd lose so many people because they would just go to other cities, because other cities are at that.
Police department's a good example of that.
Yeah,
my
we
son-
would lose so many employees. So then we just turn into a training ground, which every bit of that cost savings that we would be saving for benefits, you would lose because of what it costs to train. I mean, when we hire an officer, it's $100,000 to train that officer to a point where he's at a retain spot. So if we were doing that, where we were just rolling over employee after employee after employee, every bit of that savings that you had on saving benefits, I guarantee you would spend up.
Brian, just one last comment, then
Yeah.
I'll shut up because I'm hearing the crowd.
No, I appreciate it. This is me too.
So, the other thing, so I sat through this meeting last week, and that's why I thought, I need to come to this meeting to better understand, but the thing that I liked also is the city and Katie, we have the benefit package, but they're also trying to manage the expenses so those don't get out of whack, dude. She's gonna be doing an RFP on a broker to try to help the cost of the benefit package that can get out of control, where that percentage could be a lot higher. So I was comfortable also in talking and hearing things, that there was a sensitivity to the expense of things too. So I think that's just another angle to keep those benefit costs.
And I agree, and I appreciate what you guys do. I think my whole point then is simply to the council, keep in mind that small business, being the largest employer in the United States, does not get a lot of this stuff. So when you guys get hammered about some of these overpaid employees, they're coming from that background. That's the background I come from. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So not just comparing to the federal government and to other cities, but compare it to the citizens who are paying bills.
And
And
don't look at like Davis County, principals or something like that and go online.
I've-
You will lose your mind.
well, I won't lose my mind, but I've lost plenty of hours of sleep just looking at this for myself. So again, yeah.
I just
Not fair.
maybe have a suggestion, rather than, obviously, the city is happy with the benefits that they have, because that's what they have and they've chosen. I think if we have something specific that we are concerned about, that might be a little easier topic. Then they could define why they have chosen what they have chosen, and we could question the cost of it. But I think when you say general, obviously they're happy with it, right? Or they would be going with a different plan. So if somebody says to me, I don't like your cooking, you should look into it, I'm gonna say, I like it. Why should I look into it? Did you get my point?
Yeah, no, and I think the other thing is that there's an assumption, and I'm not gonna, this isn't you, I'm just
But you-
making a
you-
general assumption that well, the or the people in the city choosing these plans are picking the most expensive one, and that's not right. In fact, we've had to switch something, we collectively had to switch some things so that it's not exorbitant, and I think that's the thing that kind of went into, is the fact that it's not something that, we're trying to pick something that's the least impactful, but still affordable. You know, it's not a $70,000 deductible, you know, or whatever. I mean, my son's hitting some of that same stuff in the Weaver County Sheriff, is that some of their plans are horrible, but that's all they have, and that's all they can afford. And I think that's part of the problem, is that we don't want to have people coming to work sick because they have to. And I think there's several different things in there that I not only retention, but also not livelihood. Making sure your employees are happy, but you know, they're taking care of themselves. And I think that's, even the weird plan that we're on, they give you money to make sure that you're checking your blood pressure and all these other things, like an incentive fee to stay healthy. I'm like, okay, you know, I can do that for $50, you know, whatever. But I think that's some of the things that humans in general don't do a lot of, taking care of themselves. And if the city is trying to do that to take care of their employees, I think that is kind of the next step, and that's why loyalty comes into play too. And I think that's something you can't pay for.
Are you an electrician?
No,
Oh,
but I have wired a lot of stuff.
I have a son that's an electrician, so just comment.
Okay, well,
yes. Katie, on the software program that you guys use to compare city by city, does it have an option to pick up what the benefit packages are through those different cities as well?
So there's a few cities that will like put their benefit package in there too. There's not a ton of them that, but Katie, that's where Katie went and did the extra legwork and said, you know what, heck, like I'll just send this out to all the HRs. And so, like I said, I bet you it's over 30 that she went and got that are right close to us.
That would be
Same
interesting to
size.
see where we
Yeah.
land in all of that.
Plans are offered, how much they're paying, the percentage, what they're giving to 401k, their vacation, sick leave accrual.
Cause I think last time we met also, you were gonna take a look at what their full compensation package was.
Yeah, and
Their wage plus the benefits.
yeah. So we'll be able to do that now that she got that information.
Are there any cities that combine together to get better rates on insurance?
I don't know that that's a possibility. I know when we've met in the past, maybe you can help me with this, but I know when we've met in the past, it's workforce per company.
Yeah.
So I don't know that would be an option to join.
'Cause I think the very first year that we did the Citizen Budget Committee, somebody asked us to look into that. Like, could we merge with Harrisville and Pleasant View and get one big plan? And there was some pushback on some of that.
Didn't you guys switch to whatever it was Bill recommended that was a co-op?
HP, which is the state's, it's like a pool of insurance. So that's why our rates have been a lot more steady.
We're already in the value program, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you guys appreciate that. Again, it's kind of an awkward conversation, but I appreciate it. I think it's something that we.
I appreciate you bringing it
discuss.
up, to be honest.
That's all I've got. Any other comments or thoughts or?
I have a question, but
Yes.
it's on a totally different, discussion.
Yes.
Was talking to my husband about the $15 increase. No, actually, I was talking to him about having to change the bill pay thing. And he would like to know, how much are we paying? Excuse me. You're gonna have to go on. It's not helping, I just thought, whatever. How much are we paying this collection city to do our utilities compared to hiring maybe a part-time worker and doing it in-house?
That was discussed.
So, can you say the question again?
Cause you want me to call.
Basically, how much are we paying?
How
for
much is the city paying to like,
the software? To the software.
To the software?
no, not this software, don't we have a company that my automatic bill pay goes to a company? Like
So-
the Express bill or whatever it was.
Yeah,
Is
so,
that the city or is that a company?
so right now, we do have utility billing clerks that are handling all of the processes to get them. And then we send it to Express Bill Pay, which is our really new portal to process the card payments, right, and some of the bank pays that come in. So they're not really doing any of the.
So you do the computations. they're just
Our
doing the
utility billing.
passing
system,
the information.
And then they upload a file to Express Bill Pay, and we pay Express Bill Pay to process the card, the payments for.
And that's not something that can be done in-house?
That's what we're hoping to do with this new portal, is saving us money by switching from Express Bill Pay to the Casella Community Connect. We're saving about $500 a month.
But that's still an outside company that's.
It is.
doing it,
Yeah.
right?
But the outside
We don't
company
have
is
the-
our, it's our
We don't have the
accounting
ability
software.
to process it.
It's like Visa, yeah. It's
Yeah,
just all this
they have to,
software.
we have to have somebody who has the ability to process the electronic payments.
And that's not something that we can hire someone in the city to be
No, it's
trained
like
to do?
it's a software program that you have to pay for.
I mean, it's a thing where
Okay,
you
then-
got,
Are we paying
Several.
more to have this company do it for us than we would be paying if we bought the software? That's my question then.
I think we're saving money. Yeah.
They're self-operating at your level and just accessing, like Ryder said, it's a payment system.
but I think part of the deal is, if you hired somebody to do what they're doing, it's not a full-time job.
Well,
I
if we were
mean,
to.
It is because they have the system, but, I mean, if you got somebody a month, they do the billings, then.
Ultimately, you'd probably have to hire more than.
Yeah.
Somebody who could do the code and everything else on the computer side to program it, to read those cards, to take that information and process. it.
And there's
We only pay $7,000 for that process. Not in the old system.
Yeah.
You couldn't pay somebody that much in a part-time.
Okay, that was my question.
Wait, sorry. I was trying to answer.
It's okay.
I'm curious to see if you like Cassell, because we use Cassell at Mountain View and we don't like it. So when you were presenting that to council, I was just like, ugh. So I'm curious to follow up with you on that one, but. Any other online thoughts, comments?
I've got
Yeah,
one on this past legislative session. Is there anybody in the council that's taking a look at all the bills that are moving forward, anticipated to be signed, and how that affects the city financially?
Well, everything's done. So they did a Utah League of Cities and Towns that people are like, oh, why are you paying money into these weird organizations? Well, this is the reason why. They went and they're basically, I won't call them a PAC, but basically they advocate for the cities and towns in the entire state to push back on some of these, I'll say it, ridiculous bills that some of these people put out. And thankfully we killed every single one that was going to be brutal, like putting a cap on property tax, restricting us to, oh, you have to tell the citizens on April 1st if you're going to raise property tax. Like you can see by the schedule, that'd be ridiculous. Some of these things, like what was the other one? Oh, capping your rainy day fund. Oh, you can only have this much. And I think that one did pass, but I think we're close enough. I'm not going to worry about it. But so yeah, we.
But there isn't anything else out there
That was crazy, that
Connected to
affects us directly. There's a couple, but it's nothing that was catastrophic that was gonna
okay.
roll us. And I
I
don't
just
think there was
now
any
the time to plan
unfunded
for
mandate.
that.
Yeah,
If it
so
was.
we had Scott, John, Councilman Pulver, Councilman Dowpad, like there was a bunch of them that watched it really closely and,
Yeah,
would
Mayor-
watch all the session.
Yeah,
Mayor,
the three voting members on that were me, the mayor, and then Scott Hess. So, and I watched they put it out every Monday at noon, and so I, can put it up on one screen and do my job. So I was dual hatting it the whole time. And some of the stuff you don't care about, like, there was some weird stuff on loans, that we're not gonna do ever because we're not a transportation hub. Like, I don't care, so there's certain bills just ignored, but,
So the
yeah, some
gas
of the-
tax thing didn't affect the B and C?
well, they're gonna fund it back. So they're gonna take the tax down, but then they're gonna keep funding the cities the same what they were. And I was like, well, what, okay,
Why even mess with it?
yeah.
you don't understand some of the things that come out of the legislators. I don't understand them. So, but As long as there's no impact to us, that's what I care
But the biggest impact happened last year is when they snuck that thing in about what you had to tell people,
about.
or you couldn't raise
And
property.
they tried to play with that again, and, you know, and I'm just like, whatever. All I wanted was, them to approve appeals process, and I don't think that got in, and
No,
so I just kind of rolled my eyes. I'm like, whatever. So, you know, it's lesson learned on that, and.
Yeah, well, it snuck through a lot. I mean, I'm glad we weren't a school district and had that problem.
Well, yeah, and that's,
That cost them $30 million.
yes.
Is there anybody online? I don't
No.
know. That was okay.
So
Well-
we couldn't get connected for some reason.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well, thank you. I guess we're good.
I will not be here next meeting,
what is next week?
April 1st.
That should be fun.
We can pass anything on it.
Let's bring the jokes and let's make it light. Okay, well, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks or 4. Thank you.
See you in 4.
See you in 4.